just looking at the sun here. See what's going on. Oh my God! Thanks for joining us here at the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. Fancy meeting you here, viewers, wherever you might be viewing the content from. This is some composite imagery. And we've got all of our activity in the southern hemisphere. We've got some growth of sunspot 3068, I think is the name of that one, in the southeast. Low levels of X-ray flux. And you can see some umbrae spreading apart there. We're going to show you some spectacular close-ups of that. We've also got a massive coronal mass ejection to cover. Here's another composite. This is 171 angstroms plus colorized magnetogram from SDO, the Solar Dynamics Observatory. Some great telescopes out there, including the James Webb. But the Solar Dynamics Observatory, still a house favorite. Let's see what volcanoes have been erupting. Karimsky on the Kamchatka Peninsula continues to explode and produce a 14,000-foot plume of volcanic ash, otherwise known as a flight level 140. Sakurajima on the Isle of Kyushu, Japan, producing a 6,000-foot ash plume. And you wouldn't be wrong to say Raung is erupting on East Java. So elevated seismic activity there. So limited ash plume there. Not exactly sure, between 4.3 and 4.8 kilometers in height. Please don't pole vault the caldera. More on that later. Putting the more on and more on that later. It's the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. Fuego in Guatemala. Some phreatic type eruptions happening there. A steam-rich degassing accompanied by glowing in the crater. Started to intensify at the volcano as of early morning on the 28th. Did you know we're expecting a coronal mass ejection strike today? Yeah, a minor glancing blow, and another one tomorrow. We'll see what happens. We'll see if it's happening while we stream the video. Who knows? Anyway, some eruptions happening at Fuego in Guatemala. Cerro Negro de Maya Square in Colombia. I've never heard of it. But it turns out seismic activity elevated there, so perhaps another. Wow, a 5.2 magnitude quake there as well. So perhaps that Cerro Negro de Maya Square volcano in Colombia will be a regular feature on our list. Sangay in Ecuador exploding, as well as Revenador, flight level 200 from Sangay, flight level 160 from Ecuador. 20,000-foot ash plume over Sangay, 16,000-foot ash plume over Revenador, and Sabancaya isolated strong puff emissions as it explodes and produces a 27,000-foot ash plume, flight level 270. Again, don't pole vault that caldera either. I don't care how good your track team is, I guess it's your field team. Don't do it. Don't pole vault the caldera. So we've got some elevated seismic activity here around the planet, especially in the West Pacific. Let's check the list on USGS. So you've got this 5.6 in central Russia there. Sort of an odd place for a quake. Not super common to see quakes there in the center of the Asian continent like that. Also a 5.1 there near Japan, a 5.2 in between Japan and Kamchatka, a 5.3 near the Izu Islands of Japan. So again, the West Pacific there experiencing some significant earthquake activity, another 5.2 near Japan. And then we do have one isolated quake here at extreme depth, 504 kilometers estimated depth. That one in between Tonga and New Zealand. Here's a 5.6 right near the Kamchatka Peninsula. So we see a continued increase here in seismic activity. Remember, folks, any earthquake can be a foreshock. Don't assume because you've seen a 7 magnitude earthquake that you're not going to see an 8 magnitude earthquake in the same area. It does occasionally happen. Anyway, continuing on, and we're back to the realm of space. So here is our 304 angstroms imagery. Again, activity isolated to the southern hemisphere. This sunspot in the north has completely evaporated. So the south hemisphere is where the action is. And we're expecting a North Pole current sheet coming. We'll cover that momentarily. The radio flux still at 93 solar flux units, so the same as when we covered it yesterday. There's the 1-year chart of the radio flux now flatlining here at 93 solar flux units. And if you're wondering what a solar flux unit is, it's radio density. So the signal density there, it's 10,000 joules of radio signal density. That black line is the 1-year chart of the 10.7 centimeter radio flux. Looking at the Space Weather Enthusiast dashboard here, NOAA is forecasting a brief period of geomagnetic unrest early tomorrow morning on Sunday, July 31st. Doesn't really say why. Maybe it's one of the 2 coronal mass ejection strikes that we've forecasted on the channel. So we are expecting one today at some point and one tomorrow. I would expect it to show up midday tomorrow, not so early, but hey, that's what the Space Weather Enthusiast dashboard says. That's NOAA's forecast. Next, we'll look at Earth's geospace. So here's the last 4 hours, and things pretty calm here around the planet. That's Earth's magnetic moment from space. The model is showing you nanopascals, magnetohydrodynamic pressure. So it's a fairly static equilibrium sort of reached environment there. Let's take a look at Earth's magnetic moment from the ground. Again, things pretty calm, geomagnetically speaking. Once again, that's the last 4 hours. And the scale that this model shows is nanotesla, which is magnetic flux density. We show it daily on the channel. And if you're wondering what was happening 2 years ago in terms of ground magnetic perturbations, consult our videos. We most certainly covered it. KP index is at 1. Planetary K index is a measurement of global geomagnetism, and you can see things have been calm here for the past 3 days plus. And let's move to the real-time solar wind. So we have seen a minor increase here in the solar wind density. That looks a little bit like an incoming coronal hole high-speed stream. And no real indication that we see a coronal mass ejection strike yet. Again, we were expecting a glancing blow, so sometime soon today we would expect to see that. And around this time tomorrow also, expecting to see a second coronal mass ejection strike. We've also got a massive coronal mass ejection to cover. Is it directed toward the Earth? Well, you'll have to stay tuned to find out. Current solar wind density, 14 protons per cubic centimeter, a significant increase from yesterday. Solar wind speed here quite low, 334 kilometers per second. Next, getting into magnetic data, seeing a little increase here in the GOES magnetometer over the past few hours, at least in the GOES 16. The GOES 17, not so much. Keep in mind, that's just after midnight for the local time on the satellite. Next, looking at the top view ecliptic plane field plot, you can see the north solar polar field here is beginning to migrate. So the south solar polar field, kind of part of it facing the Earth at the moment. We'll show you that. North Pole current sheet headed this way. You can see it here in green, approaching stereo A. So here's our North Pole current sheet. Here's our South Pole current sheet. Solar plasma it is indeed aligned to one pole or the other. So here's our line of sight field plot. And if you're wondering where the data comes from, it comes from 51 ground-based magnetometers, as well as magnetometers on stereo A and stereo B. So here's our line of sight coronal hole plot. You can see Earth-facing South Pole-oriented coronal holes shown here in red. And now some North Pole-oriented coronal holes rotating in. You can see how far south those are already. However, most of the North Solar Polar Field is still located up here, just east of the solar heliographic North Pole. By the way, don't pole vault the caldera. Speaking of poles, don't pole vault the caldera. It could be unhealthful. We're going to move into the realm of sunspots. We're going to show you the SDO imagery of coronal holes here right after we pause for station identification. Welcome to the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. We like to cite facts on the channel. We like to avoid fraud, propaganda, nonsense, and other crap. I know you're probably seeing lots of crap, especially if you're viewing the video on YouTube. I'm sure your subscription feed is full of some ridiculous videos. We hope not too many, and we hope that you don't decide to pole vault the caldera as a result. That could be unhelpful. Remember, folks, our finest days lie ahead. So if you want to help out the channel with some merch, check out the links below the video. One of the links you'll find is to our Redbubble shop. The products are, via our link, sorted in order of best selling. This is our number 2 bestseller. If you're going through hell, keep going. This is our homepage, smashomash.com, and welcome to the Neo-Renaissance. Yes, we are still in the process of writing a paper to explain a plausible mechanism underlying the solar polar field and sunspot cycles. So help us out via subscription services, perhaps, by becoming a member of the Smash Team at smashomash.com/SmashTeam. Did you know that in 2019 a crack YouTube unit was sent to social media prison for a crime we didn't commit? And that we promptly escaped a maximum security social media stockade into the internet underground where we survive as producers of fortune? It's true, folks. It's true. If you have a problem, if no one else can help, and if you can find the content, maybe you can hire the Smash Team. This awesome article/imagery is only for gold and silver level subscribers. And if you're viewing the videos on YouTube, thanks for tuning in. Congratulations on realizing that the content exists. We've only got 2.54K subs at the moment, probably because we're not engaging in any fear-mongering or nonsense on the channel. Let us know in the comments what your favorite fear-mongering nonsense channel is. Perhaps we'll feature it for some laughs. If you want to see some laughs on YouTube, let me give you some advice. Check out Gina Maria Colvin Hill. If you like to see blurry images interpreted as UFOs, entities, and all kinds of other stuff, check out Gina Maria Colvin Hill. So, here is our coronal hole imagery. You've got quite a few South Pole-oriented coronal holes here facing the Earth. We could see some high-speed streams from those, and we could not. We'll have to just wait and see. If so, we'll cover it on the channel. Let's move to the realm of sunspots. So we've really only got 2 sunspot groups at the moment. They're both in the southern hemisphere. These northern sunspots have evaporated. We don't see any umbrae up there, at least when I did show prep. Keep in mind the magnetic environment can suddenly change. 3068 is the sunspot to watch at the moment. So here's our SDO continuum. And here's our SDO magnetogram, and we're going to zoom way in on that. We're going to zoom in a little bit. And better yet, we're going to zoom in a lot. So here's your close-up magnetogram. And here's your close-up continuum, SDO continuum imagery. So it's grown a little bit. You can see the umbrae spreading apart there, those leading South Pole umbrae rotating a little faster than the trailing North Pole umbrae. The X-ray profile here kind of low. So we're all the way down to a sort of a B-level output there for the general output. No significant flares here over the past 24 hours. Most likely spot to see flares, obviously, is this sunspot down here. Excuse me. So there's our 94 angstroms wavelength, a wavelength specifically designed to view solar flares. Not a lot going on in the past 24 hours in terms of solar flares, but in terms of coronal mass ejections, there has been a massive one. Have you seen it? We don't have any relativistic particles. We're going to show it. First, a star chart. And the yellow line there is the ecliptic. The blue line is the galactic plane. We've still got Saturn setting here over Lehigh Valley. Also Jupiter and Mars up there. Coming at you a little bit later today. Once again, thanks for tuning in to the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. Here's your solar system forecast. Before we do that, let me just check the life of the stream, and everything looks just fine. Thanks for leaving a comment, General Disturbance, who says, now with the Louisiana law sphere, the Smash team will find out who sent them to social media prison. Actually, we're aware of who sent us to social media prison. It was Feces Book. Yes, Feces Book. Feces Book inspired us to create our own website because instead of whining about the pathetic censorship on, quote, social media, end quote, we just decided to make our own series of websites. Superior websites. Websites that laugh in the face of pathetic censorship. Here's your solar system forecast. There's where things will be in a week, and keep in mind that planets aren't going to kill you, and that this map is not to scale. Next, we're going to show some coronagraph imagery. Here is yesterday from George Mason University. And let's show that massive coronal mass ejection we were talking about from the perspective of stereo A at Lagrange 5 and Soho-Lascaux C3 at Lagrange 1. So check it out, folks. Is it earthly directed? Look, it looks like a halo. Oh my God. Are we all going to die? Well, even if it was earthly directed. Consumer tip. The sun is not going to kill you. Let me just reiterate that. The sun is not going to kill you. However, terribly idiotic decisions made by mankind could kill you. Because, well, when in doubt, don't blame the supernatural. When in doubt, it's probably a person's fault. So make sure that you hold those accountable who screw up. We do. Because we hold ourselves accountable when we screw up at the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. That's part of the reason why we are able to do the same with others, right? If you're accountable for your screw-ups, you should be able to hold others accountable for theirs. So it may look like a halo here on the right, but it's not. Because if you look over here on the left, that's stereo A's imagery. Some of that ejecta may be headed toward Earth. So this is the initial part. There's actually two CMEs here happening almost at the same time. So the first one was yesterday around 1600. So if we bring this back, that one is off to the west. You can see right there, there's mainly ejecta only off to the west. Now, some of that may create a glancing blow for Earth. For you new viewers, Earth is off in this direction from the perspective of stereo A and behind the coronagraph from the Soho-Lascaux C3. So that could be another glancing blow that we could expect to arrive on August 1st around midday. But this really massive one on the far side of the sun is completely not Earth-directed. No component of that is earthly. So the main halo ejection you see here, that might look like it's headed toward Earth, it is headed off in the opposite direction. Because keep in mind, as the plasma comes out of the sun, it diffuses. It gets less dense as it moves farther away from the sun. So here's some hydrogen alpha imagery to show filaments and prominences. We do have filaments mainly around the edges of the solar disk. And remember, folks, we say it all the time in the channel, you do not need coronal mass ejections. You do not need solar flares or sunspots even to see coronal mass ejections. They happen all the time, even around the time of solar minimum. Of course, less at solar minimum. But let's continue on here to show some ionized helium from the GOES-16 SUVI. So some activity up here. You can see some crown prominences here. You can see some filaments. That looks like an area to watch. Also, this area down here seeing some activity. And of course, keep your eye on this sunspot. It's been showing some signs of life. So this is where our normal space weather video normally ends. We've been doing extended coverage lately to include our bonus features and our meteorology segments. So that's the last 24 hours in 171 angstroms, the house favorite wavelength. What's your favorite wavelength? Let us know in the comments. So here's our bonus feature segment. Satellites community dashboard showing no charging hazards at the moment. Communications should be working well. On a global scale, there is your relativistic electron flux from the GOES-16 and GOES-17 radiographic measurements. Things in a normal operating range here. Here's the NOAA forecast. You can see NOAA forecasting a bit of a dip here in electron flux. Again, we are expecting a coronal mass ejection strike today and tomorrow, and another one on August 1st. There's the one-year chart of the relativistic electrons from Solon.info. We're going to show the ionosphere layer. The F layer is located at about 300 kilometers of altitude, and it is in many ways the bridge between Earth and space. If you're not used to looking at the at the ionogram, we'll show the anomalygram as well. So that's the latest imagery. Here is the anomalygram showing anomaly in megahertz from the 30-day median. Mainly low-frequency anomalies happening at the moment. Some pretty rapid shifts happening as well. This data is from Australian Bureau of Meteorology. There's the latest ionogram from 11:15 Universal Time, and there's the latest anomalygram. Next, we'll show the coupled thermosphere, ionosphere, plasmasphere total electron content forecast. These are the most likely places to see GPS errors. We are seeing some pretty wild swings there. Some very low electron contents. Again, keep in mind that is the total electron content. It's showing all of the electrons, all the free electrons in between your GPS satellite and your handset, all the way up to the thermosphere. Thermosphere, ionosphere, plasmasphere, free electrons. By the way, if you don't check out our community posts, you may not see all of our content, because who knows if it's showing up in your subscription feed or not. And we've been putting up links to articles that we post and so forth, because the reason that we're looking into heliophysics is because of cosmology. Did you know you can take MIT's physics for free online? It's true, folks. It's true. In fact, you can take all of MIT's courses online. Check out our playlist for videos that have nothing to do with space weather. Thanks to everybody who's tuned in. It's time to show the latest intensitygram and the latest colorized magnetogram. So here is Sunspot 3068, I believe is the name of that one. Here's what's going on with the magnetic fields. It is beta gamma class. It is the most likely place to see solar flares. And there's the whole disk image. This area down here is also somewhat likely to produce some flares, especially as it approaches the limb. Let's show one more composite view. I like Iron Star. This is 3 different species of ionized iron. 335, 193, and 94 angstroms. If you're wondering what that is, that's extreme ultraviolet light. So these are very specific bands of the electromagnetic spectrum. It's very hot iron gas with a specific number of electrons. That is Iron Star. Now, we're going to move into our meteorology segment. There are a lot of misconceptions about meteorology, whether it's in reference to climate or weather modification, HAARP, cloud seeding, chemtrails, or who knows. There's all kinds of ridiculous explanations of simple phenomenon, which is why we were tweeting about Occam's razor. And by the way, make sure you check out our Twitter poll. We've got a Twitter poll about accountability at twitter.com/smashomash. So please go check that out. Here at the Smash News Network, we appreciate your input, and we want to know what you think about accountability. Can it be avoided forever? Twitter.com/smashomash. It's pinned right at the top of our profile. There's only like 1 day left, I think, on that. So make sure you answer our Twitter poll. So what we're looking at here is the Gulf Stream, ocean currents, sea surface temperature anomaly. So you can see a bunch of hot water here in the North Atlantic, a bunch of cold water down here in the North Atlantic. Because we cover facts on the channel, not alarmist, fear-mongering nonsense. So check it out. We've got these currents that are making it all the way to Ireland. And if you're wondering if Europe is freezing, the answer is no. Europe is clearly not freezing. So if you think the AMOC is turned off, oh my God, the AMOC is shut down and Europe is freezing, well, it just isn't. So, let's dispel yet another pile of nonsense right now. The AMOC hasn't shut down. The Gulf Stream is making it to warm Iceland and to warm the UK. Europe is not seeing a year without a summer. Maybe you've seen the news stories about it. Anyway, here are ocean currents and sea surface temperature anomalies. We'll just briefly show it to show all the facts. Cold water in the Central Pacific, hot water in the Northern Pacific. Hot water around Papua New Guinea. Cold water around Madagascar. Last but not least, look how cold Lake Superior is. Also Lake Huron, quite cold there. That is, yowzers, that's 20 degrees below normal temperature for Lake Superior. 20 degrees Fahrenheit, that is. All right, and let's show what we normally show here. The jet streams, starting with the eastern world. There are the jet streams of the east. Here are the surface winds of the east. Here are the surface winds of the Americas. We've got varied pressure over the Rockies. We'll get to it. Here are the jet streams of the Americas, and this anticyclone now moved out into the Atlantic Ocean. So there's our high pressure system. We actually watched it hovering all around different parts of the country. Now it's finally moved off into the Atlantic. That is a clockwise rotation known as an anticyclone. In the upper level winds, that's a 250 hectopascal winds, by the way, if you're wondering what that is, that's the jet stream. Here are the jets of the central world, Europe and Africa. Large anticyclone over southern Africa. You can see that counterclockwise rotation. And a chaotic jet stream here in the northern hemisphere. as it is summertime and that air is less dense and hence less massive. And those are the surface winds. Let's move on to complete our meteorology segment and today's daily space and earth weather video. Now, I don't know what's going on here. This looks like a nonsensical map. How is it going to flood here, but not here? Like, really? The flood is just going to end at the borders of... Sorry, flooding is banned in Colorado and Utah. Therefore, through weather modification, they've decided to prevent... Yeah, that we can just... Listen, let me make one thing perfectly clear. The idea that mankind can control major weather patterns or the climate is the height of ignorance and arrogance. In order to change the climate, mankind would have to significantly change the temperatures of the oceans. There's a lot of water there, and it requires a lot of calories to heat up the oceans. Those of you who live near the coast can attest to the fact that your temperature is associated with ocean temperatures, isn't it? So anyway, the oceans take thousands of years to heat up and cool down, and Earth's heat latency lies in the oceans. It does not lie in lies about the atmosphere. In other words, the atmosphere contains only about 1% or less of Earth's surface heat latency. The rest is in places like this. Water, it has very high heat latency. Air, it has very low heat latency. Anyway, that was your weather.gov map. Click weather.gov. If your county is lit, click your county to get your weather warnings. Pacific Northwest, exceedingly hot, while the central part of the country, a bit on the cold side. As we once again cite balanced facts, this is your temperature anomaly forecast based on the GFS model, shown in Celsius degrees for the next 72 hours. We hope the flooding is subsiding in places like eastern Kentucky. Unfortunately, there is some more heavy rain expected in places like the Oklahoma Panhandle, northern Mississippi, eastern Tennessee. Anyway, that's your GFS model for total accumulated precipitation over the next 72 hours. And that will be fairly accurate, as 72-hour GFS forecasts are. That's why we show them on the channel, because we strive for accuracy and ethical presentation of facts, not unethical grifting, propaganda, and nonsense. If you'd like to buy some overpriced real estate in Colorado, please tune in to other channels. Here's your NASA GOES lightning mapper. And let's check a real-time lightning map to see where the teeth of the storms are currently located. Do we have terrestrial strikes in the U.S.? Well, it looks like we do. Tulsa, you've got a cell to your north. Bartlesville, there's thunder rolling in. Next time you hear thunder, I highly recommend checking out lightningmaps.org, powered by blitzertung.org. And it looks like Putin is now bringing lightning to Eastern Europe. It's Putin's lightning. Yeah, Putin's lightning. Leave us a comment if you idiotically think those are directed energy weapons and not natural phenomenon. Yowzers, what is going on? There we go. This video was originally streamed live to Twitch. Check out the mobile app. Twitch.tv/Smashomash is the channel. The Twitch mobile app will actually let you know when we go live, unlike certain live streaming platforms. Anticyclone here over the Pacific Ocean as well. There's your clockwise rotation of a high-pressure system. Clear skies there in that portion of the ocean, most likely. And we've got very mixed pressures here over the western U.S. Next, moving to our weather.gov map. This is radar.weather.gov. And it's actually animated today, and for that, we thank you. We'll focus on the lower 48 now that we've showed the all 50 states view. Here is your clouds and fog through the shortwave radiation satellite, 3.9 nanometers infrared is the wavelength, and here is our water vapor map. You can see here the jet stream pushing some colder air into Pennsylvania. It's a very temperate day today. In the Great Lakes region, seeing some cold Canadian air rolling in. Here's your recap. Vertical motion of water droplets from these ground-based systems known as Doppler radars. Here is the shortwave radiation map showing clouds and fog, since half of the country is still largely dark. And there's the water vapor. That should clear things up if you're not getting the full picture from your Doppler. And we hope you are able to forecast your own weather here at the Smash News Network, least busted name of news, because remember, folks, immersing yourself in the data is how you understand the physics. You know, science is a rabbit hole, and oftentimes you end up with answers to questions not asked. So you just go with it. Go with it, because the facts will set you free. And we hope you're free. You're certainly free to click our links and to click like and subscribe. Thanks everybody for tuning in. And may that solar wind be at your back.